México está muy bien en temas de diseño, hay gente con mucho talento, pero creo que lo que nos falta como país es nuevos modelos de negocio y más visión de negocio. Creo que llega un punto en el que tu trabajo te exige un poco más, el puesto también siento que te exige un poco más y pues nunca debes de quedarte atrás en los conocimientos. Esta maestría me está ayudando mucho a entender como el otro lado que no es tan creativo de cómo poner un negocio, diferentes modelos de negocio, cómo administrarlo.
Mi trabajo consiste en la selección, en la planeación y en la compra del producto. La maestría me está poniendo mucho más cerca de la meta del futuro que quiero en mi carrera profesional. Te da las fortalezas de lo que está pasando en Estados Unidos, lo que está pasando en Asia, lo que está pasando en Europa y sobre todo para tener muchas más herramientas para que tú puedas crecer y que tú puedas desarrollarte, o sea, no depender de alguien, sino como depender de ti mismo.
Hello, welcome everyone to our live conversations, the transformation of luxury brands, the story behind No Code by Tots. This is one of a series of talks that we've been having in Central of luxury brands for our global fashion management program, a 2-year master degree held together with the FIT. I want to thank Tots Group for making this possible, as well as to Mr. Diego Della Valle. No Code is an intersectional project launched by the Italian luxury group Tots in November 2018. It's a hybrid and cultural idea that fuses emerging technology with Italian craftsmanship, interpreting and translating society's social changes in contemporary products. We have Ramak Fazel. He's a photographer born in Iran that lives and works in Brooklyn, New York. He has been called an anthropologist with a camera around his neck. And Michele Lupi is the Tots Men's Collection visionary, a man that constantly treads the borders between fashion, design, and culture. Let me just tell you how this is going to happen. They will be talking, but we will have some breaks for Q&As. You can post on the different platforms in which you are in, YouTube, LinkedIn, or Facebook. You can post the questions, and I will tell them to our panelists. Welcome, Ramak and Michael, to Central.
Hello, thank you. Hello. Thank you to having us here. And we are really happy to talk with you guys. And I'm based in Milano. I'm in Italy. And where are you, Ramak?
I'm in New York, in Brooklyn.
Okay, so we are here. Can we start or?
Yes, definitely. You can start, and then you can also share your screen.
Okay, so maybe I can say something before, and then we can share the screen with the presentation. I'm journalist originally, because I did several magazines, international titles in Italy, in the Italian edition, because I did for 5 or 6 years the GQ edition with Condé Nast, the Italian edition. Then I did, I founded the Italian edition of Rolling Stone, that is a very well-known music and culture, popular culture magazine. And then Icon, that is another magazine that is well known in Spain, and Icon Design, that was on design and architecture. And all these years, probably 20 or 25 in magazines and media, I worked with the gentleman here on my probably right, Ramak, that is a photographer. And he is an adventurer, probably. I can describe him. So we will talk about what is the meaning to working in the media business, in the media. But in specific, in 2018, I was called by Mr. Diego Della Valle, who is the owner of Tots Group, that is quite well known. Worldwide luxury group, to join the company, because he told me he was thinking that probably luxury group like his are moving and transforming themselves in media company. So probably he told me we need somebody who is used to produce contents like a journalist, because the media, the social, the digital culture can give us the opportunity to speak directly to our clients. So we started. My role is inventing and preparing contents and stories and cultural projects for the brand, because now in the contemporary fashion and luxury brand are more or less a big families where people want to take part of. And so it's not enough to promote only the products, but it's really, really important to organize and describing very well the values of the company. So I think we can, Ramak, can you describe your profile? What do you do?
No, that's interesting to hear you describe that, Michele. As you mentioned, we've worked together for a long time, and I've sort of seen your trajectory, your work evolve, and it's in part also informed my work. But I think as we get into the Silicon Valley project, we'll have a chance to talk more about the kind of ways that my work came into the project, or how you chose to work with me. For me, photography, you mentioned you're a journalist, and I came to photography a little bit later. I was trained as an engineer and developed an interest in photography later, after I graduated from college and moved to New York. So I kind of came into photography a little later with an open idea of what in photography I wanted to explore. But moving to Italy and meeting you, Michele, and other people with whom I work, that sort of expanded my ideas. And then I saw photography as I saw a whole series of new possibilities of how images could work. And hopefully we'll have a chance to talk about that.
I can remember when we met for the first time, because it was 1994, a long time ago. I was in Milan, and I was working for a travel magazine that was called Dove, that it means where, and Gulliver, like the Gulliver travels. And I was preparing my stuff because I was moving to New York, and I was in the office of the magazine. And at a certain point, the telephone rang. It was around 2:00 in the afternoon, so everybody was out to have lunch. And I responded to this phone, and somebody on the other side told me, "I'm a photographer, American photographer, just arrived in Milano. And I know that you are working in magazines, and I would like to show my pictures." And he told me, I just moved to Milano and from New York, and I was moving to New York from Milano. So I said, okay, maybe we can meet and we can exchange some addresses of the two cities. And and I was really fascinated about your idea, because you went to Milano just to do a sort of a challenge. You wanted to do it in a place where you didn't speak any language, even probably ciao. You didn't say ciao, and you wanted to trying to survive just on your energies and work. So you arrived in Milano, and it was a really, really true adventure, because I remember you arrived in Milano without knowing anybody, no language, no people, anything, and just with this number of the telephone number of the magazine. So we met.
Michele, people listening might say, well, what does this have to do with fashion? They're telling me something that doesn't have to do anything about fashion. But I think in this right now, what we're touching on something really important that I think everybody listening should consider, that a lot of the work you do later in your life, and you're describing something, Michele, that happened when we were 26 or 7, around that age.
27.
30 years ago. A lot of what you do in life happens in ways that you can't predict, with relationships that you develop, relationships are a very important part of a working culture. You cultivate relationships, you grow through relationships, you connect with people through relationships. And I think as our world evolves and as the world becomes hyper-globalized, there's a desire to return to those kind of things, relationships that people build, they cultivate, they understand, and my experience becomes part of Michele's experience, and his experience in part becomes part of my experience, and so we intersect those things. And I encourage the students listening now to really consider those things and be mindful of that as you move through.
This is really important, because I know that we are talking with students that they are younger than us and we have more experience, and I would like to share with them what is important to be a good professional even in the fashion business or in the media business or whatever. But it's really important. So in this journey of 1 hour that we do now, we'll point some very interesting points for me that a student has to know, or I can share with them, to know what is important if you want to work in a certain way, professional way. So we will go through. So we can start with our presentation, that is called, let's see, we can go to we share. So we will share the presentation now, and we can go through this. Let's see. Sorry, a minute. Okay. So here you can see the logo, the two logos. One is the TOTS logo, that is the main company, and the No Code logo, that is the new brand that the TOTS company launched in 2018. We can start a little bit about the TOTS story, because TOTS is a very big and well-known handcrafted company, worldwide well-known, but was founded at the beginning of the family, is owned by family, Della Valle family, and at the beginning of the 20th century was founded by Mr. Filippo Della Valle, who was a very small shoemaker. He was doing shoes very simply in his kitchen at home. And yet, then at the end of the 60s, TOTS is now, and it was based in the central of Italy. And at the end of the 60s, Dorino, Della Valle, with his wife, found the very first artisanal factory about shoes on that part of Italy, in central Italy. And then in the 70s, Diego, who is the owner, actual owners and president of the brand, took the helm of the company, and he decided at the beginning, he started to study law in Bologna, that is another beautiful city in the central Italy. He decided to quit university and go to study marketing in the US. And then he built and more this brand that is TOTS, that now has different other brands. So there is TOTS, there is Faye. Faye is more jacket and apparel. And then Hogan, and outside of the brand, but is owned by Mr. Della Valle, is Elsa Schiaparelli, that is a very important and historical fashion brand from Paris, France. So today we are going to talk about how and why luxury brands are transforming themselves into media company, and what I and Ramak learned in these 20 years of work. So it will be a talk by me, that is the name, and we don't have the name of Ramak, but we will add at the next time. Sorry. So my experience with magazines, these are some examples of magazines that I did in the past. And I always as Ramak said, try to approach the themes in a little bit a different way. So it's always trying to find out a short circuit. When we founded Rolling Stone in Italy, we immediately realized that the real rock star in Italy wasn't a musician, but was a motorcycle racer, very well known as Valentino Rossi. And so we decided to put in cover Valentino Rossi as an Elvis Presley super rock stars. This is just an idea of what it's important in life, trying not just to have an idea, but to double point and double jump. The first idea is good, but maybe you can add something more interesting. So the first idea was, let's put Valentino Rossi on the cover. But the second idea was, but he's a sort of a rock star with an attitude, with his attitude. So maybe we can take the clothes of Elvis Presley and underline that he's the real rock star in Italy. So this was made by, was a picture made by Ramak by chance, and was a very, very, very successful cover, because was the time when we didn't have already media and social media. And so everybody wanted to know more about the private life of Valentino Rossi. So this cover, we received a lot of requests. But you can see the other cover and the other magazine that I did in my experience. One of the things that I really want to underline, it's really important to the attention of details. So I beginning to do a journalist. My journey in journalism was the beginning was when my father gave me this letter card, this stationery designed by him, because he's quite well-known graphic designer. And at the time I was studying architecture, and I was really, really passionate about racing cars. And I was studying architecture, but I really wanted to write and to collaborate with a magazine in writing about racing cars. So I decided to send a letter, because my father gave me this stationery at Christmas as a present. And I used this letter card, this stationery, to write to a very big power publishing houses in Italy, telling them that I was really passionate about racing cars. I wanted to work with them. Rizzoli, that is a very important publishing group, called me back and told me, we are not really interested in your passion about racing cars, but who did the stationery? So the design of stationery. These are just the sketches of my father. So the idea was, and I want to underline that it's really important, the attention of details. If you want to do a letter, if you want to, not a letter, but maybe an email, or a letter maybe is good now, you can send a specific thing that can catch the attention of your, with the person that you want to talk with. So first thing is attention to details. These are some of the things that I think I have to learn while I was working in these 20 years. These are the most important things that I wanted to tell to you. So details matters. Be curious. Always be curious and open to things and to people. Always giving something, always giving first. So not thinking about the most important thing I think in life and in professional life is trying to do something with passion and not thinking immediately about money, but the money comes after if you do something with passion and if you do a well done work. So maybe we can see all these points after. So, as I told you, Tod's is a very well-known artisanal company. And when I moved to them, I was really happy because I felt all this importance of the handcraft products. Tod's became famous when Mr. Della Valle started to point very, very, very good attention of details on the leathers that were coming from US and from Great Britain, but always worked by our artisans. So Tod's at the beginning, from 80s and 90s, was very, very famous and successful between the famous actors of Hollywood. So we had Antonio Banderas, Michael Douglas, Denzel Washington, Samuel Jackson. All of these guys started to using Tod's shoes. Then this is the reason why when I came in the company, I arrived in the company in 2018. Immediately, I started to think with Mr. Della Valle that we are a craftsmanship company, but we need to think about which is our relation with technology, because we are very, very well known for our artisanal work, but the world is going really, really fast and in the digital way. So we started to think we need to find out a way to balance our artisanal DNA and the technology side of the world that now is really important, especially the technology that is applied on the sneaker market. So we decided to launch a new brand that is called No Code, that is now merging the two sides. One is the handcraft products with the technology, because I think that now, from now to the future, probably we will be not like in the past, where the digital side was the new world and the analogic side was the old world. But I think and I feel that probably in the near future, the balance between these two aspects will be the challenge of the future. So this is the idea that we started to think, trying to do a new sneaker, a new shoe that can merge these two aspects. And so this is a sort of a statement about our philosophy, about the philosophy of no code. This is the DNA that is sort of an advantage. At the beginning, when we launched the no code, we wanted to give the opportunity to the designers to have a place where they can express their ideas and their philosophy. And so we started to doing shoes, but probably in the near future, no code will be a place where we can do very different projects. We are very focused on quality, and till now, we did a sort of a range of timeless products and all these products are made and think as a product that you can use from the beginning of the day in the morning till at the end of the day in the evening. So we wanted to have a sneaker with the technology of the sneaker, but mixed with an Italian taste, Italian artisanal DNA, with all the materials and natural leathers that are used in a traditional Tod's shoe, but in a technological way in a sneaker. Our designer is a Korean designer, but it's interesting because he is not trained as a fashion designer, but he is an industrial designer. Originally, he was a car designer. So he was trained in Korea as a car designer. Then he moved to Italy. And then after several years to Pininfarina, that is a really well-known coach builder in Italy, based in Turin, he moved to shoe designer. And he always told me that shoes are similar to cars because they are objects that can give you the opportunity to move. So for a car designer, shoes are sort of a small cars, as probably an architect can see furniture as a small architecture. So we are working very close to Young by Seok on the project. He's the art director probably, but we will collaborate with different designers soon. Now we can share, I would like to share a video that we prepared for to show what is no code till now. So it takes 3 or 4 minutes and we can see this video.
Per me no code è una filosofia di vivere senza codici.
Actually, shoes are cars written small. Clothing is a fantastic concept. So we thought, okay, let's change the material from steel to cloth and see what happens.
Things are evolving and things have changed, and there is no code, or certainly in my area of work, there is no uniform really per se.
3 sono i colori fondamentali, che sono il nero dell'universo, il blu della terra e il bianco delle nubi ad alta quota. Molto impressionanti, soprattutto il nero dell'universo, perché io così intenso non l'avevo mai visto in vita mia.
L'automobile, un po' come il vestito, ha una funzione fondamentale che è quella del vestito di protezione, soprattutto nell'automobile, sia di protezione ma soprattutto di tappeto volante.
Se penso alla parola ibrido, la cosa che mi viene in mente è l'idea di complessità, un elemento che sta tra due, che è molto più sofisticato, che ha la capacità di essere uno e l'altro.
Hi, it's me, Ramak calling. I'm just back from the lab with 75 rolls of processed film. They look great. I can't wait to send this stuff to you guys. Big hug to No Code from New York.
Okay, so this is mainly the main story behind No Code. That is a brand new project because we started 2.5 years now. And we worked with a very famous and important designers, so very well known, like Mr. Mario Bellini and Dieter Rams, to maybe do advertising and taking pictures with our no-code shoe with their project. This is made by Dieter Rams, the amplifier, and this was an hi-fi made by Mario Bellini. So we used their items to shoot the shoe. I think now we can introduce. I go here. We are the Silicon Valley project, so we can involve Ramak. At the beginning of last year, I was talking with Mr. Della Valle about producing some cultural project, and we started to think about Silicon Valley because Silicon Valley has a similar DNA to No Code. If you think about Silicon Valley is a hybrid idea that merged between the original Silicon Valley, that the Californian way of the counterculture of the 60s of California culture, and the technological side that emerged after in the 70s and 80s. So the DNA is hybrid as the DNA of No Code that mix the craftsmanship and the digital culture and technology. So we decided to think about Silicon Valley, and Mr. Della Valle told me immediately, listen, Michele, it's interesting this idea that you have, but they know everything about us through the cell phone, but we don't know anything about them. Why we can try to understand more after the official story about technology and the big tech companies, what is really Silicon Valley, what they wear, what kind of shoes they wear, what kind of cars they drive. If you go to the car wash, what kind of cars you can meet, or which kind of houses they have, which kind of restaurants they eat. Because in effect, we don't know anything about them. It's very, very hidden society. So I started to think about this idea from Mr. Della Valle, and I thought that probably we could go to Silicon Valley to see and to do a sort of a reportage to find out what was the real idea and which was the real life of Silicon Valley. And this is precisely what was talking about Ramak before, trying to find some ways to have opportunities to talking about No Code, not just presenting just the product, but with bigger, wide vision. We can talk about the idea of Silicon Valley and the DNA of No Code, just to doing a different project. So we did a book. So we went in Silicon Valley for 10 days, and we did a book because we are convinced that luxury today is about culture, not just the price. As I said before, culture project on culture are very, very important. So today brands have established an ongoing dialogue with their audience through a shared set of values and ideas, as I wrote here. So cultural relevance has risen as a sort of a new currency. Ramak, can you hear me? Or I can have to go out from the...
Yes, I hear you.
Okay, sorry. So when we decided to do the book, I immediately thought about Ramak as the photographer, because Ramak has a really, really well-known name in Italy about architecture and design, but he is always curious about people, about life, about their lives. So I called Ramak in the US. Now he's based in Brooklyn, but at the time probably he was based in California, near Los Angeles. Mm-hmm. And I asked him if he wanted to be part of this project and to do a sort of a book, because I remember he you worked in San Francisco as a professor of photography, right?
I did, yes, a few years ago.
Yeah, and so you knew a friend of mine always described you as a sort of anthropologist with a Rolleiflex. Rolleiflex is the camera on his neck. The camera is an old camera with film, so it's not a digital camera, but was interesting to using an analogic camera on this subject that is totally, in the idea, in the philosophy, is totally digital. So, so the idea was to going around just like an adventure and trying to catch the most deeply soul of Silicon Valley. Is this correct, Ramak?
Yeah, it is. I mean, we spent that time together familiarizing ourselves and exploring Silicon Valley. And one of the and I think when we look at some of the pictures, we'll see that. But one of the really I think satisfying parts of the journey was the kind of unreliance on privileged access that we had. We weren't able to enter in behind the walled gates of the large Silicon Valley campuses, like maybe Apple or Facebook, even Google to some extent. But instead, we relied on what was on the surrounding, where the people live and work, and which was part of the original query that we received from Mr. Della Valle. So it was, I think it was nicely balanced, that.
Yes. So we just left Milano and New York at that time to California, to San Francisco. And I remember we arrived in a dark, rainy night in December 2019, just before, few months before the beginning of the pandemic. And so we probably saw a Silicon Valley that now is already a little bit changed, probably. What do you think?
It was the twilight of a certain Silicon Valley, for sure. And I mean, the whole world changed, but I think and of course, we didn't know what was on the horizon. So in some ways, I think it's interesting looking at the project now with distance of over a year, how it has changed. And how also Silicon Valley has emerged through the pandemic with more relevancy, and there's more attention on Silicon Valley than the great attention there was before. It's even amplified more. So now, in fact, over the last few weeks, I've been sharing with Michele a lot of links and things I find about places we visited or people that we ran into who are in the news cycle now. So it's interesting how so many of these things intersect.
Yes. So I think we can go through some pictures so we can share and show. This is your profile. Yeah, because a little bit story on you. You grew up in Tehran. Then you moved very young to Utah with your family, your father and mother, and in Indiana. And then you graduated in mechanical engineer. That is not a typical career of a photographer.
No.
From Purdue University. Why did you choose mechanical engineer?
Well, at that age, I was attracted to science, and engineering seemed. We were told during that time, at our age, this was also kind of still. We were much closer to the Cold War than we are to the technological revolution, and we were told that it was important to study science, and you'd have an opportunity to pursue other things later. And that's in fact what happened. And that's one of the things I think about the American system, that it encourages people to explore different paths.
Okay, good. So now we are going through, I think I can propose this, we can through some images of Silicon Valley and talking about this project, then we stop. I have to stop sharing probably the presentation, and then we can see if we have some questions, and then we go back to the presentation. So here you can describe your picture. So this is a really
Michele, we're starting. Yeah, you want me to start with speaking about this, Michele?
Yeah, I think so, because
Okay.
if I say Silicon Valley and I can show this picture, it's a little bit strange that it's
true.
exactly the idea of Silicon Valley. So
okay, I think we caught a glimpse of the book, and the book has about 120 some pictures in it, doesn't it, Michele?
120, right?
The book. You know what? Hang on 1 second. Let me grab the book. It's right here. 1 second.
Yeah. Don't worry.
This is the book.
Are we?
Okay. I just want to give a little bit of sense. So also, I think here you can also see a kind of dimensional sense. Now I'm gonna turn the pages really quickly. That's a map I think Michele showed before.
Yeah.
So you can see that there's a lot of they're full page pictures with short captions at the bottom, and there's like 120 pictures in this book. Okay. Now, the picture we're seeing on the screen now is one of those, and I think it captures the spirit of what we were after. We were, before taking this picture, I'll show you the picture I took immediately before this picture. It was in the town of Los Gatos, this picture of the tree growing in front of that house. That is the house in which Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak invented Apple Computer. The very first Apple computer was assembled in this garage of this house that is still there. So we were taking this picture, and a gentleman walked up to us. He was sort of standing close to the house across the street, and we started a conversation with him. And it turns out that he was the neighbor of Steve Jobs, and he's still, over nearly 50 years later, he still lived in the house across the street, in the same house from Steve Jobs. And that's this gentleman in the picture with his wife, Joanne. So they told us a little bit about what it was like growing up with their children, playing with Steve Jobs. And he invited us into his house and told us a brief story of how one day Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak came to him and his wife and invited them across the street to look at the new computer they were inventing and building in their garage. So the gentleman, Gene, and his wife, Joanne, they walked to the garage to look at this computer. And his wife, Joanne, asked Steve Jobs, Steve, what can I do with this machine? What's it for? He said, you can do a lot of things, Joanne. For example, all your recipes, your cooking recipes, you can store them in this computer. And Joanne said to him, Steve, I'm happy with my index cards. I don't want a computer for that.
Handwritten index cards.
Handwritten index cards. So in a way, now that it's become, and somebody in Italy mentioned this, now that it's become fashionable to say no to Apple Computer, Joanne was the very first name. She was the first person to say no to Steve Jobs.
That's right. That was a nice story.
And so this is how a lot of our encounters came about. I mean, I think that's one of the things I enjoy working with Michele, is that his curiosity opens up a lot of venues. There's things that emerge. There's people you meet that you go with, and this is, I think, also it's a journalistic impulse to kind of follow your instinct and follow the unexpected things that happen.
Where are we now? Here.
This is again, this is another Apple computer picture. This is across the street from the Apple, the new circular building designed by Norman Foster. And this is the visitor reception center. And those people are holding an iPad in their hands, which shows them like a kind of VR experience with the campus. So they're looking at something that we're absolutely unable to see for a variety of reasons.
It's the only place where you can see the building of Apple, because you cannot. Yeah. It's just behind those trees, right?
Yeah. It's not really visible from the street, and it's of course intentional that these trees are planted there, and as those trees mature and grow, the entire campus will be obscured.
Do you remember how they protect from maybe drones the space on the sky?
Right. Yeah. Somebody mentioned to us. We were inquiring about that, and someone mentioned that they have a falconer who has a trained bird of prey that is able to attack any drone that flies over their airspace. So they have attack birds trained to do that.
This is really analogic, I think.
Well,
Not
you know,
digital.
and also, yeah, that's a kind of analog versus digital encounter. But one of the things that we constantly encountered in Silicon Valley is these barriers that we discovered that in a way isolate the workers, the tech workers, the employees of these large Silicon Valley firms. They're ensconced in these campuses, and so they really don't have a dialogue with anything outside. All their needs, all their material needs are met in these spaces. They have restaurants, they have laundry facilities, they have dormitories. Any need that an employee might have can be met within these spaces. So these large tech companies become sort of paternalistic employers who look after every need that they feel an employee should have. So it's off-putting, and it's definitely a defining characteristic of Silicon Valley today.
Yeah, let's go. This is the art director, creative director at Apple Media. He is an Italian guy who was working with me because we founded together the Italian edition of Rolling Stone, and then he moved to Wired magazine in Italy. Then he moved to Wired magazine in the US as an art director, and then he moved to Apple as the creative director of Apple Media. So now it's a big guy at the Apple, but he every day he's relaxing from work, doing a long journey with his horse in the evening after work. Then, do you remember this place, Ramak?
Yes, I do. You're picking all the, Michele, you picked all the Apple computer pictures.
Sorry, no, but just by chance. So we can go, this. Let's
talk about this one. Let's talk about this one.
Yeah.
When people ask me what my favorite pictures in this book are, this is one of my three favorite pictures. And I'd be curious, and I'm curious what other people think of this image. I wish there was a way, if we were in a live audience setting, maybe we could ask our audience what they think of this picture, what they see in this picture. But this picture encapsulates a series of symbolisms around Silicon Valley. It's a house in San Jose. And the very first thing you might notice are the two Tesla cars parked in the driveway. I find it strange that one is pointed in one way and the other in the opposite way. And it's almost like the polarity of a battery, plus, minus, coming, going. That's an interesting fact for me. An interesting kind of formal aspect of this image. Then the driveway. I think it's very curious how it's a extremely wide driveway, and there's an awful lot of concrete in making that driveway. So it's like an extension of the freeway that's come right up to this house. This is not the original driveway of the house. This is a new driveway. And then another really curious thing is the fence. That split rail fence, it's called, is it comes as a typology from the American West. And to see that kind of frontier style applied in this setting is odd and curious. But also the transformation of that house, all those little lights and the roof pitch has been altered. This house has been changed. But an interesting thing about these changes to this house is the unique position these houses enjoy in all of the United States. These houses in San Jose that were built in the 40s and 50s were, up until very recently, middle-class homes. These houses were, for the most part, many of them, of course, still are, but they were occupied by middle-class families who maybe bought these houses 20 years ago or 30 years ago, and until recently they had very reasonable values. This was not really part of the Silicon Valley explosion yet, until companies like Google and eBay started moving into this area. And then that transformed the value of these houses radically, to the point where we discovered in 2018, between 2017 and 2018, over a 12-month period, these houses had the distinction of being the homes, the neighborhood with the fastest appreciation of home prices. So much so that a house like this, where somebody who was making possibly even minimum wage lives, so somebody in this house might have been making $15 an hour, they discovered that their houses were appreciating over the year period by $100 an hour over a 1 year span. $100 an hour. So imagine if you're a worker making $15 an hour and your house is appreciating by $100 an hour, 8 hours a day. Every day this house went up in value by $800. Imagine how that changes your whole thinking around money and consumption. So around this neighborhood, we started discovering, and we have some pictures in the book also, we started discovering all these malls that were popping up and all this commerce that had developed for people who found themselves with so much equity in their homes. So yeah, that picture tells that picture captures Silicon Valley really.
Which one? This one?
Well, no, the one we were looking at, the house. That picture it tells a lot about Silicon Valley. But no, it's good, Michele. We should go on to other pictures. I keep going to this picture, and maybe
because we discovered that in Palo Alto, a lot of people decided to live in motorhomes because of the renting prices. So the lower level probably of workers now live in motorhomes because they are cheaper than houses. So it's really,
I think our time is almost running up. And I think we received the message that maybe we can invite some of our audience in for questions and answers. I wish there was a way we could, I think it's nice looking at those pictures kind of quickly too. But maybe.
Okay. So
guys, I think we can be here like for 3 hours and nonstop and just keep on talking about all the interesting things and everything. I mean, every time you were talking about something, I was already thinking in a new question and so many things to talk about, all your experiences. The first thing I want to ask you is about your backgrounds, because you're both not into the fashion world, into the editorial world, but yet you ended up here. And this is one of the questions that our GFM students are always concerned about. Well, I didn't study fashion, or I didn't study, something related. But then why is it important, or what's the plus that gives you not having these so linear education towards fashion or towards something? Because you come from cars, you come from mechanical engineer, I'm an architect. I mean, what are we doing here? So what's the
I think that the wider experience that you can have and get is better. So I think probably, as Ramak mentioned before, it's a really big help if you are a curious person that is interested in different fields. So probably I don't know if Italians or Latin cultures has more warm, I don't know. In the US, I thought I saw when I was living in New York in 1994 that they have more linear careers. Then in Italy, when my father, who is a graphic designer, studied architecture, so he had a wider culture about architecture, history of visual arts, and then he specialized in graphic design. Now we are specializing more and more. But I think if you can get and if you can keep a wider point of view and vision and trying to do different things, I decided to move to Mr. Della Valle's company because I was curious to learn what is meaning to working with a visionary like him, because he is a true visionary. And so I think all these experience that I had, different magazines, passion for racing cars, architecture, design, visual culture, photography, gave me the possibility to talk different languages. And also, more you have experience, the more you have, then you can be more secure, because you know the world, traveling, reading a lot, reading books, but also magazines. They are still important, because I think the big part of the news arriving from the magazine and the digital take the news and put it on the digital platform. But I think trying to keeping your curiosity open as much as you can.
Definitely. Then when you were showing the picture, Ramak, of the Apple headquarters, it's almost like they're a part of the world. So where does these getting involved in the world and having experiences that we're talking about, how does that work in that place where you're in there? You don't have to go outside. You're provided with everything. Is something going to happen in that sense with this part of the world where technology has been developed? I mean, do they really need to go out, or are they okay?
Well,
there?
We notice parallels between what you're describing, this world, ensconced world in which these campuses and these tech workers who live in those spaces, there's similarities with the paternalistic industrial villages in Europe that existed at the turn of the century. A lot of those were mills, fabric mills, woolen mills. There's some in Italy, like Cresvidada. Most of them are in Germany and England. And that whole idea of the paternalistic industrial village collapsed around the time of the First World War. And now we're seeing similar things in Silicon Valley with these paternalistic villages where the employees are living in these, and maybe not living, but working and entertaining, and all their needs are met in these villages, these campuses that have barriers to entry and barriers to exit. If an employee needs something, it will be met for them. It will be provided for them. So that's something that we hear about, like these tech buses that bring employees in and out of these spaces. But the employees don't want to live in those spaces. They don't want to live in those towns. They want to live in San Francisco, where there's a culture life, there's museums, there's entertainment. So this is something in Silicon Valley that we observed, and to some extent we've maybe commented on in our book. But yeah, it's an oddity. It's a curiosity.
Thank you.
I hope that answered what you were.
Yeah, definitely. We have a lot of questions. I am going to jump into some of them. They're talking about what is your perspective on crafts on countries with the craftsmanship that we, for example, in Mexico have, the artisans who don't have access to technology or either education, how can they compete? How can they update their work? How can they? How can this craftsmanship still be here without technology and without education in this case?
That's a nice question.
Yes. I think that we need to think about what luxury is today and how it transformed itself in the last few, I don't know, years or 10 or 15 years. Because at the beginning, several years ago, luxury, it was something for few people, very wealthy people. And then these big companies, like big companies, started to deal with millions of people. And then we started to think and to see as the artisans now start to be a really luxury producer. So I think it will, the craftsmanship and the analogic life could be very, very interesting, because we will need the wide and the speed of technology, and also probably the big luxury group are more popular. But if there are always a percentage of people that usually are very, very wealthy people and cultural people who always need to find something special, something made to measure. And I'm quite convinced that the merge between the culture of craftsmanship will be, we can see it in the last few years when I went to different presentations, when I was working for magazines in Paris, in Milan. There was something always that underlines the precious work of the artisans. So it will be precious, because will be something that at the end, it's important to know that the digital ambience is completely cold, and we recognize the emotions in the craftsmanship, in the handcrafted things. And so probably in the near future, craftsmanship will be the real luxury ambient, and technology will be the thing that you can use to speed up and to have a more easy, to get more easy things more easy. But I'm still convinced, and it's for sure, that craftsmanship will be the future of the luxury, the real luxury.
Thank you, Michele. Ramak, do you have any comment on that?
No, I mean, Michele has a lot more experience in the realm of luxury, but I think also that certain luxury goods, as what we define them now, have become so accessible. I think Michele spoke to this. They've just become available. You can you can find what you want online. You can buy all the luxury goods from the world's top luxury manufacturers online. But what you were describing earlier, a small artisan who is producing small objects and doesn't have access to the internet or to an apparent market, may have an opportunity to make his work become coveted by virtue of access or limited access. Somebody, like Michele was saying, there will always be a market for people that want that extremely coveted thing that they can't have. If you can't buy it in a one-click shopping experience, but you have to discover it, then it becomes somehow more virtuous. A friend of mine, she has a, here in New York City, a high-end luxury vintage clothes she sells. And she said that there's just an explosion of people interested in vintage clothing, high-end luxury vintage clothing, because after the pandemic, people want to shop in person. They don't want to buy things online. They don't want to buy these things. They want to buy it in person. They want to experience it. They want to touch it. They want that experience.
Yeah, they will still buying a lot of stuff online, but the experience, the search.
Yeah, the
search is a part of the experience. You can have some pleasure to find something that nobody knows or is not wider and well known worldwide. So you always need something that your friend doesn't have, and so you can go to dinner with him and show him what you find on. Maybe you find it on online, but there is something, this small pleasure to find and to spend time. Passions usually passions are always involving time, a little bit fatigue, trying to find out why I always thinking why people is passionate about vintage cars are always broken, but they like to fix it, to find places, to find pieces for the cars, going to the small markets.
It's like finding a treasure.
That's that passion. It's like love. Everybody wants to suffer a bit and then conquer the object, the thing that he wanted.
Exactly. We have other questions. We are already on the hour, and I know you haven't finished your presentation.
No, but I finished. We finished, so we can have all the questions. No problem.
Okay. They're talking about sustainability, and I think when you mention, Ramak, these going back to physical, going back to these experiences, but also thinking on sustainability in buying the pre-loved clothes, as they call it today, already from a very big brand, from a good designer, from good material with good craftsmanship, but then they're going back to these kind of things. And this is one of the very multiple ways in which you can see sustainability. And they're asking, how is Todd's group working on that, and how is No Code addressing this issue of sustainability?
But we started now. I can't say all the near future project, but I can explain. We have a brand, a specific brand that is called Fay, that it was bought by Mr. Della Valle in US in the mid of 80s. That it was a small factory that was producing jackets for firefighters. And he immediately liked the jacket and decided to buy that kind of factory to bring those jacket in Italy, because he realized that probably you could take that kind of specific workwear to the civil life in the city. And then they became very, very successful in Italy around 80s and 90s and 2000. And then the company get bigger and bigger. And then when I came, we decided to do this small side project that is called Fay Archive, that is going back to the DNA of the Fay factory producing those jackets. And 2 days ago was talking with Mr. Della Valle, and we said, why we can't producing the new jacket that we are doing with the old fabrics that probably we have in the archives. So we went to the archives to find out all the fabrics. It's a sort of a heavy canvas, so it's quite a simple fabric, and we find out different big pieces of fabric, and so we decided to produce a special jacket using all these fabrics that we had in the archives, a sort of a patchwork jacket. So, and that kind of product is completely, we don't produce anything to do it, just using the old fabric that we had already in the factory. And obviously all the big groups are thinking now to add a button on their website, not only to buy but also to sell, so you can give the opportunity to the people to sell the old jacket of that brand that you own, and then you can change, so you can maybe it's obvious that in the near future, I have a friend who lives in Los Angeles that is called Maurizio Donadi, who did an interesting project, and he's doing an interesting project trying only to refurbish old clothes, because now this is the thing that is interesting for people. So that kind of trend will be growing, and it's very important. So we started as a thoughts group to thinking and to building and to do projects on this sustainability field, because it's obvious. It's not just because everybody is talking about, but because I'm convinced that we need a better world. And also we are producing a lot of stuff all around the world, and we consume probably just half of that. So we cannot going like that, and we have to reduce a little bit for sure.
Okay, we have a little bit of everything in terms of questions. Are agencies something of the past now that everyone has access to create digital content?
Excuse me, I didn't.
Are agencies something of the past now that everyone has access to create digital content?
So the thing is, I don't know.
They're asking if you think if the agency.
But it's the same thing that we can talk about magazines. So when I moved from magazines to the company, I'm sure that probably the producing contents by the companies, by the big brands, are more and more important. But you are talking about yourself, so you need always a third part that is independent, and then can balance the things. So I'm not convinced that magazine will disappear, as a lot of people saying. In specific agencies, we need to be sure and to point that after the pandemic, if the pandemic will stop soon, everybody want to go out and to go to the event. So I think there will be a very, very big and good and interesting future even for agencies, because we passed almost 2 years to seeing even the fashion shows on the computer. But a lot of journalists were talking to me. We're staying all the time in front of the computer, and now we want to go out and go back to the physical events. And so probably this aim to go to the physical events will produce a very big events, and so big work for agencies even. But I don't think at the end the DNA of the people, you can't change too much the things. So we will go back to the physical exhibition, but with all the easy things that the digital culture can give you.
I think we have to come to a close. We started talking about your relationship, the way you met Mr. Della Valle, the way through the conversation we talk about the relationship between technology and craftsmanship. And I want to finish thanking you and telling everyone about the importance of these relationships and because they take you into different worlds, not just in terms of you two relating, but in terms of different things being able to be related, which were probably not even thinkable of as craftsmanship and technology, and then developing new ways of seeing things, of creating things. And as you said at the beginning, it's not just shoes, but it's also new products, new projects, new housing, new
That's right.
ways of seeing technologies.
We'll do helicopters in the near future. I don't know.
Exactly.
No,
and
the
then
thing is,
also go to the no-code page where all these things are in.
No, the thing is, as we go back to the famous speech that Steve Jobs gave at Stanford University, where he was saying connecting dots, connecting points. So I'm always trying to connecting people, to be generous. If I meet somebody that is interested in certain fields, I can put him in relation with the other guy. I think I'm always trying to, as I said before, to be curious. And also, I think is always very, very important not to be scared to write to somebody, to trying to get in connection with the best of the best, because you can decide at the beginning where you can want to stay. Maybe you can read a lot about photography and you can find out which are the best photographers in fashion or in reportage, and then trying to talk with the big guys, because it's not impossible. It's just about your energy, I think. Ramak, you were working with.
No, Michele, I was just laughing now as you said that. A friend that I work with in New York, sometimes when I say something to her, I propose something, she says to me like this: stay in your lane. Have you heard that expression? It's kind of a common expression now, stay in your lane. And I think, no, I don't want to stay in my lane. I don't want to I don't want to have a lane.
Yeah, you can have a lane if you go to buy your water, and then it's polite to be in lane. But then you need to use, don't be always, it's impossible, it's difficult, trying to put energy in your work and be secure of yourself, because everybody is really similar. And people is always interested to find somebody that has energy and passion and want to do something, and you feel immediately that. So don't think that everything or the most of the important things are impossible, because they are not.
That's what we keep on telling our students, especially GFM. I mean, think big. If you think small, don't even come here, because there are a lot of small business out there in Mexico and in the world. But if you think big, and if you go out of the lane, and then you start thinking and having relationships with people from all over the world with different backgrounds, then you might have a chance.
Correct. But to relate with big people, you need to be prepared. So you need to study, to reading, to think, and to know what is the best. Because if you are not a cultural preparation, you don't know what is the quality, where the people you want to work, they're living, what they are doing. So always reading, going on the internet, looking for interesting stuff, and not losing time on stupid things, because we find a lot of uninteresting stuff on the web. So, but there is a lot of interesting and very important thing with. So let's try to not point your attention on things that are not related with quality and culture, I think.
Exactly. Thank you very much, Ramak. Thank you very much, Michele.
Thank you.
Really, we can still be talking and talking and talking. This is your house. Centro is your house. So we will definitely have something else in the near future. Thank you very much.
Last thing, the main tool that we use to communicate is our Instagram profile that is Thoughts No Code. So if somebody is interested to see what we are doing, you can go there. Thank you very much.
Okay. Ciao a tutti. Bye.
Bye bye.
Ciao Michele. Ciao.
Ciao, thank you.
México está muy bien en temas de diseño, hay gente con mucho talento, pero creo que lo que nos falta como país es nuevos modelos de negocio y más visión de negocio. Creo que llega un punto en el que tu trabajo te exige un poco más, el puesto también siento que te exige un poco más y pues nunca debes de quedarte atrás en los conocimientos. Esta maestría me está ayudando mucho a entender como el otro lado que no es tan creativo de cómo poner un negocio, diferentes modelos de negocio, cómo administrarlo.
Mi trabajo consiste en la selección, en la planeación y en la compra del producto. La maestría me está poniendo mucho más cerca de la meta del futuro que quiero en mi carrera profesional. Te da las fortalezas de lo que está pasando en Estados Unidos, lo que está pasando en Asia, lo que está pasando en Europa y sobre todo para tener muchas más herramientas para que tú puedas crecer y que tú puedas desarrollarte, o sea, no depender de alguien, sino como depender de ti mismo.